This channel is made possible through the support of generous listeners just like you. If you would like to be a part of helping us bring our message of hope, peace, love, and spiritual truth to the world, please consider heading to experienceofthesoul.com/support, where you can join us as an ongoing patron or simply make a one-time gift. Blessings on the journey, dear friend.
Natural Awakenings Magazine and Unity of Nashville present The Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly show featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from diverse perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 84, The Sacred Image. And now your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Hello and welcome to the Authentic Spiritual Journey. My name is Cynthia Alice Anderson. I am the host, and I'm here in 818 Studios with my producer.
What is up, everybody? This is Dave Croft. Thank you so much for joining us for show 84 here for a crisp February morning.
Yes, happy February, the month of love. And I don't know, we're going to do a shout out to the state of Virginia. Virginia is for lovers,
That's right.
They say.
Yeah. Isn't that on the license plate, I think?
I think it is, and I'm going to be in Virginia next month speaking. I'm going to be the keynote at a wonderful event. It's called it's the name of the conference. It's a business women's a conference, and I'm the keynote, and the name of that conference is called Empower. And so there will be business leaders from the city, and my guest is all over the state for this wonderful event. So I'm real honored to be there and real happy to support the great work they're doing. There are a lot of women moving into more and more leadership in the business world, and I think there's a real desire to grow and to lead in a different way than we've seen in the past. So I feel real honored to be part of that cutting edge in women's leadership and being in the beautiful state of Virginia. So
you're doing the keynote for that, yeah?
Yes, I am the keynote, and I'm going to do a breakout session as well. And I just feel real honored to be doing it because I got the gig, a friend of a friend, that kind of thing, recommended me for the speaking event. So I feel real honored to
Now, this isn't necessarily a spiritual event, right? This is more of a kind of, I guess, corporate, for lack of a better...
Yes. It's the Central Virginia Business Coalition.
And so tell us a little bit about that kind of that mentality, because obviously, you're not going to go in there necessarily and be like, God, but it's woven into the fabric of who you are.
Oh, absolutely. Well, my website has many of my programs listed, and so even though we had a conversation and I told them about even some new programs that had not yet even been on the website yet, they went on my site and they said, we love power, passion, and purpose. So that's the keynote I'll be speaking, and then my breakout session that's intention, innovation, and motivation will be my breakout session. So what's wonderful about that is all these things apply no matter what your spiritual background. They're all steeped and based in spiritual principle. But what I find now is everyone is looking at things from a spiritual perspective. So I won't have to hide any of that by any means, but because I'm always going to show up as myself. But it's going to be really about honoring the individual journey and how they're trying to grow and expand. And I can do that with any organization or group.
My biggest question is do you take like a preacher class on titles? Because your titles are always so good.
No. I think it's probably, I grew up in a family business. Maybe it's that.
Like alliteration and rhymes and points and everything.
I do love that though. And I'm very steeped in some of the famous speeches of history, and some of the best speakers in our history, including Martin Luther King Jr., always had wonderful not only quotes and alliterations, but would reach from all different disciplines, and even in their titles. So like one of my favorite Martin Luther King Jr. speeches is called The Drum Major Instinct, and which is not a very known speech, but it's one I've studied, listened to, read, recited from, and it always gets my attention. The drum major instinct. You can instantly picture someone,
absolutely. The
you know,
nice
out
imagery,
front. Yeah. So maybe it's from that. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
and I know also, before we get into the topic, I know one of the things that's happening in your world is, more business, entrepreneurial things.
Yes.
And so you've got a couple of little things I know that have been long coming, and we've talked about them on the show. But can we discuss though? I'm really interested in what you got over there.
Well, the product? Yeah. Oh, that was quite a setup. I'm like, what? Okay. Well, one of the first products, I don't know, because I can't exactly see what I'm doing. This is our foaming soap, and I'm so proud of this because it's our Experience of the Soul foaming hand soap, and it's with a very specific combination of oils that give it its scent, and it's oils from all over the world that are even included in the countries that support our show, and they all have healing properties that have to do with our themes on the show. You know, there's some are healing, some create a deepening, some an expansion. And so the makers of this, the company we're partnering with, Dar-Lin, they have they're big supporters of the show, and they listen all the time. And so in their business, they took the qualities, the spiritual principles we discuss, and in choosing the oil, that's how they chose the oils. And then I had some favorites. Yeah. And so they combined those to make our very own special oil. So there's that. There's a fragrant room spray. And then there's also a bar of soap that is gorgeous. They even have chocolates too, but I didn't bring chocolates today. Because in their former career, they were candy makers. So now they've combined all their love of the essential oils, and they use all the best oils. They're edible oils. So they're very safe for soaps and things like that.
Yeah, so. And that's Dar-Lin, who again, like she said, they are big friends of the shows, long time supporters. And so we're not just like trotting out some random thing from eBay or Etsy or whatever, saying, "Hey, will you shill for this on our show?" No, this is things that we really believe in, and it's
This is a wonderful partnership, exactly. And we're also partnering today, I don't want to forget to mention, with Deeply Coffee. And we will put a link to their business. It's in downtown Orlando, just a block off of Lake Eola. Deeply Coffee is sponsoring our show today, and good is all I can say.
It's really good.
Amazing owner and friends who work there. It's a great place for meetings, to go and chill, and they even have a kind of a nightlife now. They started selling beverages and stuff at night, and so there's a real nice evening vibe as well. So. Cool. So let's get into the show. The title for today's show is The Sacred Image. The Sacred Image. And the sacred image is a very expansive topic. So, the sacred image. What do I mean? Well, several years ago, first of all, let me say that every image has within it the energy, the blueprint, the pattern of God. And so each image in and of itself has a message it brings to us. For instance, if I said, now imagine a mountaintop, imagine standing on a mountaintop. No matter what culture you live in or what your background, you would probably imagine a mountaintop experience. An experience of exhilaration, of accomplishment, of moving, journeying past a limit.
Yeah, mountaintop moment. That's what our theme song is called, Mountaintop Moment.
Exactly. And you remember we did a show on that a while back. View from the Mountaintop, we called it. And so we've talked around this topic many times, which is why, and in recent shows more, and it's why I wanted to take a little bit of time today to talk through it, because there is this divine idea that everything in nature, every person, even every type of career, has within it a sacred, Carl Jung called them archetypes, right? So, and we should probably put a link, Dave, into archetype. And I'd love, Dave, too, if you can I'd love to get a really great Jungian definition of archetype, but it's basically the pattern within each thing. And so as a minister, now I'm giving you framework for what I'm talking about. So far I've said sacred image, and I've talked about Carl Jung, the great Swiss psychiatrist, and I've learned a lot from Carl Jung work. There's been some deep teachings, and before I'd ever even heard of Carl Jung, however, I studied what we call in the spiritual life metaphysics or metaphysical spirituality. So, Unity, Church of Religious Science, or Centers for Spiritual Living, those are all part of something called New Thought. And New Thought is, in fact, a study of metaphysical principles or metaphysical spirituality. And that word, metaphysical, means beyond the physical or beyond the literal, right? And so when we say metaphysical spirituality, we are looking at what is the meaning behind what we're reading or what we're seeing, right? And so in Unity, when we study a text or when we study a book and the teachings of Jesus, anything in the Bible, we're looking at what is the meaning behind the word. So we look at what is the historical context for which it's written, who was writing it, who was it being written to, what is the situation? And then what language is it written in? Can there be multiple meanings for this word given the cultural, historical context for which it's written? Then, so first we're saying what is the image or what is the word and what does it mean during that time? Then, once we know the deeper meaning and the deeper understanding, then we can begin to apply that meaning to our lives. Well, that's metaphysical, beyond the physical. So, several years ago, when I first started hearing about Carl Jung, I was first learning about shadow and all those different kinds of things, and that was very interesting. Then I learned the deeper aspects of dream work or dream interpretation. And I'm still at a very, let me say, friends, I am in my infancy stage of dream study, which is why I'm not going to give a course on dream study or a podcast on dreams. When I do that, I will bring in an expert. Yeah. But what is really working in me today and is not new, but is deepening for me is the study of image, hence the name of the sacred image. Did you pull up that archetype definition? Sorry, I wanted to get back to that.
Yeah, and we'll have a link to this in our show notes. This is actually from the Wikipedia, which,
sure.
is sourced. So these definitions are coming from Theories of Personality by Jay Feist and the Archetypes from the Handbook of Jungian Psychology from Anthony Stevens. So this isn't just, some random stranger on the internet. Carl Jung understood archetypes as universal archaic patterns and images that derive from the collective unconsciousness and are the psychic counterpart of instinct. They are inherited potentials which are actualized when they enter consciousness as images or manifest in behavior or interaction with the outside world.
Okay, I want you to read again the part about interacting, that last couple sentences there.
They are inherited potentials which are actualized when they enter consciousness as images or manifest in behavior or manifest in behavior on interaction with the outside world.
Okay, interaction with the outside world is what we're about. Okay, so this is, I'd never heard that exact definition, but I love that. That is excellent. And as God would have it, exactly what we needed for today. So you've heard me mention in past shows when I've said, if a bird crosses your path, pay attention. Remember we talked about that. If it's a hawk, well, that's different than it's a bird, and then if it's a dove or a seagull.
Or an albatross or a cardinal.
Or an albatross, yeah. Or a great heron, which always looked kind of albatrossy to me. So, or a robin or a kingfisher or, all of these birds have different meanings. So part of my native heritage also is studying the meaning of what nature sends. Because, what I find is when I'm going through something, it could be any number of things. If I'm going through a difficult time, let's say, this happened to me at Unity Village. I was walking, Unity Village is set in Unity Village, Missouri, which is just outside Kansas City, right by Lee's Summit. And there's a trail that goes around the lake. It's about 3.5 miles. I used to walk it every day with my dog. So I was going and I was really praying about a very tough situation. I didn't know what to do, didn't know how to move forward, didn't know how to get out of it really. And I was just about to start ministerial school, so a lot was going on for me then. As I was walking around the lake, asking for guidance, all of a sudden, a butterfly comes in front of my face. I said, okay, great. A butterfly, great. Then another one, then another one, then another one. I was like, okay, I got it. So I'm in a stage of transforming, right? So it was clear to me that the message, the butterfly, was really important for my journey at that time, and that I needed to be conscious that transformation was coming. Wasn't here yet, but that like the butterfly, I was going to go through some kind of metamorphosis. And I knew I was beginning the stages because it was wildly uncomfortable. It was wildly frustrating. So of all the animals and insects that could have come my way, it was the butterfly. Now, why is that? Because I was coming to consciousness. And this is how the sacred image chose to present itself to me. I had the consciousness to receive it on my path at that time, exactly the moment it was needed.
It's funny you mentioned butterflies because probably a little under a year before we made our exit from Memphis. This would have been about August of 2011. And so Shannon was like in a new job, or not a new job, but a new position in the job. The school that we were both teaching at was in a new building, and so really exciting. And so she saw this butterfly kind of land right outside of her office, and
oh wow!
And so she had this real, just intense butterfly connection kind of thing happening. Well, little did we know that, 10 months later, within 5 months, she was out of that position.
Oh, wow.
And then, another 5 months out of that, we were in Orlando. And so
checking out.
So we didn't know at the time that the butterfly we thought she was the butterfly, but it turned out that she was still the caterpillar.
She was in the chrysalis.
That's right.
Yeah.
She still had to go through her cocoon stage where it's a lot of fear and, probably devastating sense of loss because you live your whole life as a caterpillar, not knowing what waits for you on the other side of the cocoon. And so it's interesting you bring up butterflies, specifically monarch butterflies.
Yes, monarchs. And so, and what's so amazing, again, for all the things that could have shown up to Shannon at that moment, it was a butterfly. And I have many people tell me, too, that after a loved one passes away, often a butterfly will show up on their journey, and they say, oh, I know that is an image. I know that is I know that image is really meaningful. I know that's my mom communicating, or my dad, or I know my dad's okay. And so butterflies, yes, most definitely are messengers of the sacred for us. And hear me say this, and so is everything else. Yeah. So is everything else. So there is a wide known a butterfly as this image, a widely known that the butterfly represents this transforming image, and really even transcending image, because it looks like death is happening when in fact there is a complete regeneration going on, and then a complete transformation of form. Well, we're familiar with this one. So it's easy to connect. Well, some of the other images we may not be as familiar with, and it might require us to do a little work. And so I want to encourage you just to notice what is coming across your path right now, what's going on for you. And in the second half, we're going to definitely talk a little more, but about some resources and some exercises for you to do. But I want you first, be aware. Again, be aware of what's crossing your path. Even be aware, even though we're talking about image, I want to make sure and say, also be aware of things said to you. When you are at a real choice point, and we all are every day, really. But what I'm finding right now with the individuals I work with is people are going through huge personal transformations. They're moving out of working with people they've worked with for years. They're moving into brand new personal soul development. They are doing a lot of work on their dreams and their goals, like all the people joining me on my online class are just doing amazing personal work that they've never, ever done. So when you're in a stage like that of really trying to move forward, of really consciously evolving, well, there's a lot of support that's coming to you. I was going to say unseen. Sometimes it's not seen, it's heard, right? And so there's a lot of support coming forward for you that you may be missing because, as the scriptures say, you don't have ears to hear. Like Jesus would say, those who have ears to hear, listen, right? So what I'm speaking of is, as you start to move forward, the universe is sending you signs. The universe is sending an animal, an insect. Maybe there is a situation that happens, but also listen for the message. And if you have ears to hear, you will sense and really feel on a deep level the support of the whole universe. So as we come back right after this message, we will go even more deeply into the sacred image.
We'll return to the program in just a few moments, but first, we wanted to give a special word of thanks to our podcast partner, Natural Awakenings Magazine of Central Florida, Greater Orlando. Each month, Natural Awakenings magazines across the country take a practical look at the latest natural approaches to nutrition, fitness, creative expression, personal growth, and sustainable living. Natural Awakenings magazine is a free publication and is available in selected stores, health and education centers, healing centers, public libraries, and wherever free publications are located. You could learn more, including advertising opportunities for your business, by calling 407-628-0705. Also, we would like to extend our special thanks to Unity of Nashville, a sister ministry of CCU Orlando. If you're searching for a like-minded church community and a personal connection that supports your heart and mind in the Central Tennessee area, then join Unity of Nashville at 10 a.m. every Sunday at 5125 Franklin Pike. For more information, head over to unityofnashville.org. And now we return you to this week's episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey with your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Welcome back. We are glad you're with us, and I hope this is meaningful for you, the sacred image. And again, right before the break, we talked also about really listening to if there are messages you are receiving. And all of these ideas I'm talking about, the image, the listening to the words that are said, is really about being more conscious of the support we have in the universe. We often think that we are almost like an island, and that we're doing it alone and no help is coming our way. But there's a lot of help coming our way, and we don't always know how to interpret or to even see it, or to even be aware that it's even there. And I've mentioned on the show a few times that I've begun doing again for this is the second time I've done really deep dream work, and I can't tell you how it's blessing my life. And it is waking me up even more to the sacredness within all image. So when an image shows up, so you're like, okay, I can hear you on the other side going, okay, we get it, sacred image. Okay, but the real work comes is when you begin to notice. So, it's interesting because in a dream, at the very beginning of the dream, it's called the threshold. Where are you? What's happening? That very beginning. So what I've really discovered, how I meet someone and what they say in the first few minutes is usually very indicative of what that friendship or relationship will be down the road. So now in my conversations with people, I really notice the things being said. And I'm thinking, of all the things that could have been said, why those words now? So I say, there's something sacred in these words. And it can be very benign conversation. But I find that as I start to tune in and pay attention, I start to see a theme in the things people are saying to me. For instance, one of the things that's been said to me over and over and over recently is about my work, my business, and my speaking. You said it at the beginning of the show, knowing that we have these new products, and I have been giving that energy for sure. So it's interesting that seemingly out of the blue, from people I barely know, these same words are coming. So I'm paying attention to that. So in image, we take so much of our surrounding kind of for granted. We don't really notice it. Okay, there's a bird, there's a thing, there's, okay, there's a kid on a bicycle, there's, image all the time. We don't pay attention. But when something's out of the ordinary or something does get our attention, I want you to stop and I want you to write it down. First of all, I want you to note it in your consciousness. So number one is note it in your consciousness. In other words, take a moment, breathe it in to say, wow, that of all the images that could have showed up now.
Yeah, it's the 818 thing.
That's right. Oh, yes. And you've talked a little bit about that on the show, but say a little bit about it now because of what we're talking about, in case somebody missed it.
Yeah. The reason, the studio is called 818 Studios, and I have a tattoo that says 818 is because Shannon and I both were noticing this number just keep coming back. We'd look at a clock, we'd check the time, like for months and months on end, and it just happened to be 818. And so when it came time to name the production house or the studio, this was 1997. This is when we named it. 818 Studios was the obvious choice, and so we connected that with Scripture, Deuteronomy 8:18, which is all about provision, and it says, "Remember, the Lord your God enables you to produce wealth." It's essentially God is my source. I didn't have that kind of idea back in 1997, but that's absolutely what it is. And so even now, even throughout our entire existence from 97 to now, it's the 818 still shows up. It showed up 2 days ago. Shannon texted me, it's 818. And you mentioned that Josh is starting to notice it. Hey, it's 818. And,
yes.
And it's just this number keeps coming back. And it's just my reminder, God is my source. God is my source. It's not me. It's not how successful I am. It's not how talented I am or how many breaks I get or how lucky I am. It's God is my source.
That's beautiful. And what's so great about the 8 is the infinity symbol. Right? So you've got the infinity symbol and the 1 in the middle. It's like, okay, infinity, God, infinity. Get it? It's like an awesome image. And so again, if I were working 818 as a number, because, an 8 turned on its side is the infinity symbol, I might look up the infinity symbol. I might look up when that symbol found its way into consciousness, what was happening in the world. I might look up other verses in the Bible with that number. I might see if there were any ancient scriptures that were 818. What is that number? And then, what I often see people do that are studying things is they immediately go to the subjective and say, well, what is that to me? And even though it is important what it is to you, if you don't first know what it means, what it is to you will be very limited. Because this is what we're talking about, the sacred within the thing itself. What is the sacred within the thing itself?
Yeah, it could have just been, hey, it's a coincidence. We're seeing 818. Oh, interesting fact about our life.
Right, what a coinky-dink.
But just pushing through that and saying, hey, this is it piqued our spiritual curiosity.
Well, yes, and so somehow we think we're here and spirituality is over there. We live in this infinite spiritual substance, right? And we often say that we live in abundance and that the universal substance of God is everywhere present. But then we go, oh, that's a bird. No, that is invisible substance showing up for you right now for a reason. And I feel very loved and supported by the universe when this happens. So most of the ways I've talked about things showing up today have been external, but there's also the work that we do internally. So what happens when they show up internally? Well, it's the same exact thing. And so to when we receive an image, whether it's from a dream or whether it's something that comes forward in our consciousness in a meditation, or suddenly we find ourselves fascinated, like, I've never played guitar before, but everywhere I go, there's a guitar. What is that meaning? I'm just picking that up because I'm in Dave's studio, and everywhere I look, there's guitars, right? So that's, outward, but you think of it first, and then it shows up in consciousness. It presents itself to you, like the quote said. Why at this particular time in this particular place is this sacred image showing up for me?
Yeah, and little did we know that at the time, I mean, we were just kind of settling into corporate life. Shannon had like an office job, and I had an office job, and I actually at the time I worked at a print shop. And little did we know that within a couple of years, our life would go off in a dramatic new direction.
Right.
Like moving to Memphis, which ultimately led us to Orlando, and it's a real pivot point of not only our professional lives, but also our spiritual lives, really. Mm-hmm. And we zinged off into this whole other direction. And I firmly believe that the 818 and all that kind of came into our consciousness to prepare us for what was going to happen now, almost 30 years later?
I know, it's amazing. Well, and you've heard it said, as above, so below, right? And so as we have ideas, thoughts, energies, and consciousness, those then outpicture in the world around us, right? I even see it in thematic shows and movies. Like at certain times, like right now, and we talked about this on one of the shows where we did the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. spirituality. We didn't talk a lot about the shows on CW, but we mentioned them. And all of those shows are superhero action shows where someone is saving the city. Well, right now, everybody says, who's running the country? Who's doing it? We need saving. So that those shows are coming out now with this particular energy and consciousness is no surprise to me. Right. So we see this over and over outpictured even in movies and television. So I'm encouraging you to do the deeper work of really beginning to, I said, first notice, right? Be aware, write it down. And then the third piece to really do is do the research. What does this thing mean? What does this animal do? What are its characteristics? Even who are its prey and who preys on it can also be very, very helpful. One of the animals I was studying recently, I found out was very versatile in its diet. It can eat almost anything and is very adaptable and can survive almost anywhere, in water or in woodlands. Okay, that was important for me. How it lives, where it nests, all those things were important for my journey. So I know, I'm always hearing the cynic say, how do you know it's really for you? Well, I don't. But because I believe it is, I also get to reap the benefits of believing that it is. And I know and feel the response of the universe in this belief, because after I've worked a certain image for a while, a new image comes forward, and I get the lessons from that. So I believe everything that's happening in the news, in our lives, that's said to us, everything we see, is all to move us forward in our growth and evolution. And so if we have the opportunity to have an animal cross our path, or a butterfly, or another famous one is a dragonfly, or even better, a damselfly. Those are those real tiny, they look kind of translucent. Those are real bringers of light. A lot of people have real connections with those. Hummingbirds is another. So as those cross our paths, those are not by accident. I don't believe a life operates by, whim, wish, and fancy. I believe it happens because we live in a very ordered universe. And as we create a space, an energy, a consciousness to receive, then something more can come forward for us to help us, to support us, to bless us, to wake us up to new ideas about, who and whose we are. Yeah. The years ago, I did I was really working my chakras. Well, every morning I was working with being aware of each of the chakras, which, the common understanding is that there are 7 main chakras, even though people say there could be hundreds, but there are 7 main chakras, and that we know of. And that each of those chakras is in a different power center in the body and has a real specific energy also. And even maybe an affirmation that goes with it and a color. There's all kinds of information about chakras. Well, a teacher I was working with then really intensively encouraged me to, in my meditation, to ask Spirit if there was an animal that would depict a certain energy I needed for a certain chakra. And that was very, very helpful. Very helpful, because then as I studied an animal or I studied the meaning of the chakra, I had something in the natural world to connect it to, and it made the spiritual energy that much more real in my life. And so what I would do, or what I did, I had this small little closet. It was really like a little broom closet I made into my meditation area. It was great. It was great. And I had this little tiny space. I would sit down and meditate, light a little candle. And on the wall in front of me, I lined them up pretty well with each of the chakras. And I had cut out images of each of the animals. And so I would call forth the energy of this animal to be there to bless and support if something, particular were going on, and then to just wake up the energy of that chakra for me. And I'm telling you, today, I still can picture those images in relation to my chakras, that if I'm in a tough situation, I call forth that powerful panther or that wolf or that eagle, right? Or the cunningness of the fox, right? So whatever is needed can come forth for me because I've connected my soul and spiritual work with something in the natural world. And of course, as I did the work, I would have interactions with so many of these animals, including the fox. Now, who sees a fox in daylight? But that happened as I was working the energy of the fox. I was at a cemetery in Orlando. It's called Greenwood Cemetery. It's the oldest cemetery in Orlando. And I was there because I recently learned that my great-grandfather was buried here. And I thought, well, if it's my great-grandfather, it's probably Greenwood. I called up, yeah, he's here. So anyway, I go over there. Right above my great-grandfather's grave is, first of all, is an eagle nest. Notice that. So I worked with that a little bit, and I was about to leave. I got in my vehicle, and I looked down, and there was a fox standing there. I was like, hey, what are you doing here? And I thought, how amazing that the moment I needed it, the very time I was working on it, a fox showed up. So this is how I know, for me, that this is real. This is how I know, because I've created a place in consciousness to connect with the sacred through image, through the natural world. And so I want to really encourage you to do, this is deeper work that I'm talking about. A lot of people just won't even take it in or don't want to do it. But I'm telling you, there is such a gift in this kind of work, because it's like it brings the sacred right in and you can't miss it. It's like, oh, God loves me that much, that as I'm working with this energy, it's almost like the universe goes, here you go. And it just presents itself in form to show me that the universe is interested, that the universe cares deeply about my path and my journey.
Yeah, is supporting you.
And is supporting me 100% in the work I'm doing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I want you all to know that too. And sometimes the deeper stuff, the real deep stuff I'm doing, sometimes I have to work with it a while before I talk about it, because I want to be in a place where I have a deep understanding that I can bring to you. So I hope this is helping you. I hope this is supporting you. And I hope you are encouraged to notice what's happening. Again, even notice what's said. Remember, of all the things that can be said, what's being said? And of all the things that you can see, what are you seeing? And then take time, be aware, write it down, do the research, and then finally apply those characteristics or tendencies of that animal Try those out and see how those fit for you. So I want to really encourage you to do that.
Yeah, you'd mentioned we talked about animals and numbers. What are some examples of maybe some other things and some of these other archetypes? The Jungian kind of interactions with the outside world, the manifestations. Any ideas of what else they might take the form of?
Well, for me, it's so often in nature, and so. Like an oak tree is a different archetypal pattern than a bonsai. They're both trees, but they're both really different energies.
Now, is it something like, hey, I really resonate with an oak tree versus a bonsai tree, or is it just seeing a bunch of them around and kind of noticing it?
Well, I mean, yes and yes, but there's more to it. Yes.
Okay.
So let's say you say, I really want to go for a walk in nature, and the very place you go is full of pine trees. And you go, I didn't even know these were here. Okay. So you start going, well, there's a pine tree, and you go, oh, I love the smell of these pine trees. And you're going, okay, what does this pine tree have for me? What are the characteristics? Where does it grow? What are its root systems? What is its root system? How does it multiply? What nests in its branches? What am I attracting? So then you go, okay, well, what am I attracting? How am I putting down my roots? How am I being a safe place for things I don't want? Or am I being a safe place for things I really want to bring into, to my life? So that's what I mean. You look at the characteristics of the thing, of the image, of the thing outside of you, and you say, what is that in me? And so one of the things, I'm working with a bird right now. I want to kind of keep it to myself for now, but the aspects of the bird, and by the way, the image came to me in a dream, and it was real specific. And not only did I see it in the dream, I was it. And so it's like, okay, so this is really trying to bring me a message, because I know the soul works in image. So as I do the research, then I start applying those principles. Then I can start to see some shifts. And so in the last week, I have made more shifts from one dream than I think ever before. And all those shifts were supported, and the image supported the direction I was already moving, and was like an affirmation from the universe. So the research piece is pretty important, because you want to know, again, what's the sacredness within that image? Not do I like oak trees, right, but what is an oak tree?
Right.
Like there's certain trees grow in whole groves and clumps. You'll never see just one, because I think it's aspens, all the root systems are all connected, right? So if that's like an image you're attracted to, you're like, oh, I love that image. I love that image. Oh, those are all aspens. Okay. Pay attention to that.
Gotcha.
There's a message for you there.
Okay.
So friends, I hope you will do this, to be aware, to write it down, to do the research, and then to begin to see, is this an affirmation for you? Is this opening you up to a different energy? Is this guiding you in the direction you're already moving? But take the time to do the inner work, and even get some support on it as well. This is a deep topic, though. You're probably going to have to reach out to a minister like me, or a therapist, or even a psychiatrist who understands these types of images and works with these types of images, so that you can be supported. But it's amazing how much work you'll be able to do on your own and with other individuals on the spiritual journey that really find these things valuable and meaningful. So we do thank you for joining us today, and we want to continue to support you on the journey. And I want to encourage you to share the show, and also check us out on YouTube. And Dave's got all that information for you.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have links to anything that we talked about today in our show notes. Be sure to click on the show for February 3rd, 2020, show number 84.
So again, thank you for joining us, dear friends. Blessings on the journey. We'll see you next week.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey, presented by Natural Awakenings Magazine and Unity of Nashville. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is also made possible through the continued support of our angel patrons, Dove Borland, Peter Gibson, Paul Caswell, Arlene Meyer, Kathy and Terry, Marcia Mott, Nora Miles, Diana Cox, Leslie Williams, Susanna Garcia, and Shayla Mount. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2020 Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission from RR Hot Publishing. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.